Hi, I'm Matt from hockeyreviews.ca, and this is the CCM Pro AB. They call it the Pro Spec through retailers and on their websites. This is obviously the Pro Stock chest protector that has come to retail, which is something that I've been asking for years and years and years and years. This isn't mine. This is just hockey's. I borrowed it from them so I could talk about it, compare it to the one that I've been wearing, which is this absolutely beat up and kind of destroyed chest. This thing smells. It was used before me. I'll go into some details on that before we jump into all the things on the new one. We'll compare what has changed on the new one compared to this one, because there are a ton of changes on here when they brought this to retail. But because this isn't a chest that is mine, I can't do a protection test on it or anything, but based on the foams on here and everything I can kind of feel compared to what I have on mine, I can give a pretty good idea of it because I've used that thing a lot. So we're gonna take a look into this, look at all of it. I'll also put it on and do a shoulder pad kind of comparison thing so you can see how big this is compared to some of the competitors, because this one is a full NHL legal chest. This is the same chest that their NHL players and their AHL players are getting, and I am so happy that this is at retail. I have been telling companies to just release their NHL gear, especially the chest protectors, because most of them are beefed up. This thing is very beefed at retail forever, and CCM has finally done it. You could do it before with Bowers, where stores would do custom beefed up versions. Now CCM just has a model for it, which is amazing because, well, we'll go through it, but it's awesome to see this. So before we begin this video, I have a few things to mention and question. Number one, what is the feature that you're looking for in the chest most? Do you want protection? Do you want mobility? Do you want breathability? Do you want lightweight? What one matters the most to you? There's always a thing about cars where you can always pick only 2 out of 3, where it's either fast, reliable, or cheap. What about chest protector? What feature are you looking for the most when you search for a chest? Now, number 2 thing on here, this is slightly different. If this video is helpful for you and you want to see more content like this, please reach out to CCM on Instagram or any other social media accounts, CCM Hockey and CCM Goalie. Let them know hockey reviews videos like these are extremely appreciated and you want to see more of them, because this almost didn't happen at all. If it wasn't for the help of just hockey, this video wouldn't have happened, and they just happened to have this one in stock for me to borrow. But if you want to see me like review stuff like this and actually use it on ice and put it up against a puck machine, I would love to put this thing up against a puck machine. Let CCM know on social media that you want to see that stuff. Greatly appreciate it on my end, and hopefully they see, even though I'm critical about certain gear, I am happy to recommend gear that is very good and performs the way it should. Now, I've been asking for a Pro Stock chest to just come at retail, and they did it. We'll see how this fares in this video. So again, this video would not have happened without the help of just hockey. So if you want to see more stuff like this and you want to support them because they let me borrow this and take a look at it, check out the links in the description to them. Whether you're in Canada or the US, you're making any hockey purchase, click that link in the description, shop from them, let them know you came from Hockey Reviews. It'll be greatly appreciated, and that way they know letting me borrow their gear like this to do videos on is actually useful and stuff people want to see in the future. All right, so some details on this chest protector and kind of why I bought this. If you've ever followed my channel, you know I want the most protection possible, and I don't want to feel shots in my shoulders. I don't want to feel shots in my arms, and I know that there's stuff good enough out there that you can get that will cause it so you don't have issues with anything, and you can just play goalie, make the save, not worry about it. This is one of those things that is basically that. I had a John Brown chest protector, and I still do. Wore it for a really long time as a Russian spec. It's extremely hot, and it's extremely heavy. It's basically 10 pounds. If I was playing 3 games a night, I couldn't do it. After it gets sweaty, it becomes like 11 pounds of sweat because it gets so wet. And even back-to-back games, it was a huge pain. This thing alleviated that a lot. When I was playing 3 games a couple of years back without a chest protector like this, I would have had a lot of trouble if I was still wearing that brown over and over and over again. I bought a Kineski, basically try to replace that, and honestly, it was pretty terrible. And this thing is what the Kineski basically advertised itself as. This thing is extremely beefed. The foams on the Kineski were hilariously thin compared to this. Foams on this thing, they're so dense, there's plastic behind it. It feels like a more updated version of that brown chest I have with how protective it is and how just dense the foams everywhere are. It was a tank. When I bought it, it was a lot harder to get than it is now. You can find a ton of these used and in really good shape. When I bought this thing, you couldn't get it in good shape. You basically got it absolutely destroyed and falling apart for the most part. And you'll always see issues up here where kind of the arms are splitting right here, and it's on the other one as well, even worse. You're gonna see that on basically all these used. And what I mean by how destroyed this is, you can see the foams are just basically dented to the point of just getting beat up with pucks, and it's all over the place. Now, that isn't to say this is not a protective chest anymore. It's still totally fine. I am feeling some shots through it now, but it is fantastic, and it was exactly what I was looking for in terms of getting something that was beefy enough, as well as something that you can move in, and as well as something that wasn't crazy heavy. Yes, it's heavier than my Warrior chest, and it's heavier than a lot of retail chests because it is thick and there's plastic inserts in here and everything, and it is like very, very dense foams, but it did its job and it didn't cause me to overheat, and it doesn't like weigh you down. Now, this chest is not perfect. There are issues I noticed with it. One of those issues specifically is on the arms, which I attempted to fix by adding Bauer knee pads on it. And the problem with this arm is basically, if I take this off, it will show it off a little bit better. You can see up here how this is a pretty thin piece of foam back here. It's a dense foam. There's a little bit of padding behind it, but there's not a ton there. And this is sewn actually onto the arm now, so I can't take it off like fully. You're obviously not supposed to get hit right here though. You're supposed to get hit right here. And I'll show it off with this one a little bit better. What I found with this is these flaps didn't really cover everything, and you can definitely see on this one it covering less. And I have mine extended a bit more. So if we adjust this and we kind of, well, this one actually can't even be extended that much, but if we adjust it and extend it right there, you can really see how much more that gap opens up. One of the reasons why I added that, because I obviously don't want this gap to be exposed. And if you do extend this, you can see the issues that are caused there. The other part of this that I had problems with is basically whenever you're in RVH, like I'll show this off on me as well, but I notice this spot tends to get just absolutely peppered. This floater doesn't really cover enough, doesn't cover on the side, and this never comes down, and you get hit here a lot. And that is that single piece of padding there and nothing down here. So if you're doing a RVH post lean type thing, or even honestly just butterfly, pucks just find this spot all the time. And it's left my arm very dead sometimes and very black and blue. And it is something I tried to remedy with this Bauer knee pad, and it works okay. But I found that if it still gets hit on this corner right here, because there's like nothing behind this, so it is just this curved piece right here and then no foam behind this, you still get bruised, you still get beat up, but it's a lot better than what it was when this was extended. You can see on here, this isn't even actually extended. You can see it's kind of all the way down, but when it's just worn, you can see how much more is exposed on here compared to the other one. So I'm not 100% sure on here as to if that was a conscious change on the new one to kind of extend this. You would think they would want this kind of as big as possible so it gives the most protection, but I've noticed this being an issue quite a bit, and my little fix helped a little bit but didn't help enough. Getting to the point where I was getting dinged with that almost every game. Just I'm a tall goalie and I play RVH a lot, and it's just people try to shoot for high and they just hit that a lot. So I ended up buying that Warrior Ritual chest to try to kind of fix that a little bit, and the arms have been absolutely bulletproof on it. But this thing overall has been just absolutely a tank. That kind of gives you an idea of what this chest is and why I bought this thing. While we start this comparison between the two, we can kind of talk about the evolution of this really quickly. So CCM has changed a bunch of things on here that were obviously found on this one. And this chest, the arms and pieces of it were found on different chest protectors before. So this plate right here can be found on Premier chests. Now they didn't really have this kind of nylon. It was that like knee grip material you saw on their pads for a while. So that was usually there, but this whole design was very similar to what was on those Premier chests. I'm pretty sure this whole plate idea on the arms right here and right here first appeared on the E-Flex Shield 2. And then this type of floater and these plates reappeared also on the Axis line. So I think it was kind of a combination. First E-Flex did this piece, and then Axis kind of added a floater very similar to this. I think it was a bit wider, but those weren't NHL reg spec type ones. But this idea and kind of construction of it was pretty close, which you can kind of see here. But it's so much more beefed and so much more padded and so much harder. Like these things are pretty thick, and like you actually try to fold the actual plastic itself and everything, and it gets really solid and it's really hard, and there's hard foams behind it as well. Whereas on the retail one, it's nowhere near what this is. The other thing is this body, the idea behind this body is very similar to those old like AB Pros that people might remember. Like there was a big craze, people trying to find CCM chest protectors that were based basically off the Reebok P1 chest. So that was a huge chest in the NHL, and it was very famous. It had like yellow wings on it. That chest was basically the grail chest. It was beefed really well. Bow building in it was really, really good, and it was just honestly fantastic. A ton of goalies were wearing it in the NHL. Everyone was searching for it at retail. Kind of like the 580 craze now, except it actually had a reason for people to get it because it really was better than like everything else. That base and everything, like when you look at the sides here, it kind of does look really similar to what that old P1 style of chest was, and then it turned into like the CCM one. So parts of this also feel like it really came from that one as well. Once the new NHL sizing regulations came into effect, everyone had to make new gear. We saw the Optic One chest that was absolutely terrible. We saw CCM's offering, which was this one, which ended up being very, very good, but it took a while. We saw Konecny jump on that right away and really get in the NHL. And when you you look at the Kineski one, you could kind of see who they based it off of, and they had a lot of feedback from pros of what they wanted. Kineski built a lot of chests for people like Braden Holtby, who straight up wore a Reebok P1. So it makes sense that someone who was in that would want a chest very similar to what they used before. So it makes sense kind of doing that. Now, when these new requirements came out for this, Lefebvre was still designing gear for CCM. They still had their name on everything. And the really cool thing is when you look at Lefebvre's Instagram posts in the past, before they were at True, actually, you could see the prototype of this chest in the background. Instead of CCM right here, it had their Lefebvre logo, that silver logo. People kind of know about that from the Powered By, had that on here, and it didn't look like it had this beefy part in here. So interesting that that was there, and you can kind of see the heritage of it. And with that evolution, we have CCM now doing kind of V2 of this. They've made a bunch of changes on here, which we'll point out, but you can definitely see the heritage of that and where the kind of the base came from here. Now, one thing on this that is very different than mine, you can see how it has this foam with perforations through it. I cut this off on mine, so mine didn't have the perforations on it. It was just this extended, but not as thick as this. It got in the way of my jocks all the time. I have a pretty thick warrior jock and I tuck my chest. So even though I bought this, I would just cut this off. Since we're down at that bottom part, we can look at this pieces right down here. You can see this is a pretty different change as well. So these had like these chevron shapes here and then just normal polygons. This is just all polygon. They got rid of that chevron shape. Now, I'm not sure if the sizing would affect how many blocks are on here versus what's on here, but CCM, it looks like they shrunk these blocks down here and made these ones slightly smaller as well. So it does have a bit more of a gap. Now, I had zero issues with this thing bending or flexing anyway, but maybe this works a bit more with this bottom piece. So people who tuck might have some more flexibility in it, but that is a difference there. Now, I'm a little bit concerned. I'm sure it's totally fine, but when you look at this and how it sits, you can see how these all close up really nicely. And this one, it doesn't really close up nicely. Now, a puck is probably not gonna go through here. You can see how hard that is. It's just a bit weird to me that this isn't as sealed, but again, maybe that is so it can fold over, because you can see when it folds, it kind of closes. This one doesn't really close, but maybe that's the idea behind it, so it kind of can fold into itself and puck still won't go through here. So slightly different design idea on that, but probably overall pretty similar. Look at this kind of side wing piece. You can really see the similarities on here. You still have a soft piece at the bottom. You have this comfort edge over here, which is all this really nice air mesh nylon instead of just a normal nylon. This definitely feels thinner than what this was. This feels like it's a bit more of like a dense foam in there. This feels very soft. I don't think this is really ever for protection, and it's just a comfort edge type thing. So that going all the way up into the armpit type area, where this one did the same thing, but all that looks very much the same. But the blocks themselves feel pretty much the same. They feel like they have a very, very dense foam. So there's a softer foam and then an extremely dense foam underneath. So I'm pretty sure that is what is going on with both of these. And you even have this triangle piece up here, same as up here. A lot of things here are shared, right? This hasn't really been revamped all that much. Maybe you have slightly different sizing on things. You still have the same connection pieces, which I'll talk about strapping in a second. And you want to support the channel, and you need a base layer and a protective portive base layer that helps protect your growing as well as your hips. Check out the Core-Tec. This is the Pro 1.0 pants. This one is not quite as restrictive, and this is kind of tight right here in this X pattern. You might have seen these as Under Armour before, or Bauer for the hockey specific ones. There's also the Core 3.0, which is a lot stiffer, as you can see. Really helps protect my growing and keeping it kind of in place and make sure it doesn't overstretch itself. And you click the link in the description, use that discount code to get a discount off, help support myself, as well as get you some pretty awesome base layer pants that really do help with injury prevention and help stabilize your core while playing. Now, going back to the front, we do have another big change on here, which is this D3O piece. So this heart guard is bigger in overall size, and it does feel like it pops out a bit more and just kind of covers more overall. You can see like the overall size on this, and it has D3O in the middle. Now this is also like a molded foam. You can kind of see it in here. It's almost a plastic-like feeling material, but it does feel like that molded foams that they use on player protectives, and I love that material. Now, I also really like D3O. D3O is a fantastic material. It's very good for impact dispersion. It's on their player gloves. It's all over the place. I always talk about it. This is a bit disappointing. I love that it's on here, and I love that it's showing, but I've seen this happen in the past, so I wanted to take a deeper look on this. You can't really see it on the edges anywhere. So when you fold this over, you can see the D3O doesn't actually go all the way back here. This on the other side here just feels like kind of the back end of a molded foam. It's not as hard as what this is, but the D3O, you can see, just ends right here. Tip of it is right there. And then the tip of the top as well, and I'm gonna put my finger in here, is right to here. So really, this looks like it's an absolutely massive piece of D3O, but really it's kind of following the shape of this. I do still really like this heart guard. I think it's a very solid improvement. You can see how stiff that foam is. And when you look on the back side, it is just a kind of nylon on this side. So nothing crazy there. And it's just attached through right here and right down here. and that's kind of the gist of it. But this is a very solid piece and I like it. D3O will also kind of help with rebounds a bit, but this foam's probably honestly going to do a lot to not work with that D3O. And I really think they could have done more with the D3O on here and put it out here. Overall, I think this is an overall better design because it feels like it's a bit bigger than what the old one was, which when we take a look at that old one, it has that exact same shape as I showed on the Premiere. And this has that D3O through it, and you can see the D3O on the side, which was a nice thing. So this is all D3O going through the sides. The corners here is obviously a lot softer than what that molded foam was, and that also gives it kind of a, yes, the other piece is a lot bigger, and even if this one had the same kind of surface area, because these sides aren't really doing anything, and really you just have this middle piece, the molded foams are going to do more protection throughout here. So the new one is definitely an upgrade in that sense. The back was kind of the similar thing, just a nylon back here, but I really do wish this big of D3O could have gone through the whole piece. I feel like that's almost a little bit misleading just because of how it looks, and you kind of have to check it. This one was all the way through, and I was really happy that that was a thing. And then we get into these floaters, which has been changed, and these are a single solid piece down here. So this is still a very beefy and solid floater. You can see the thickness on the side. You can see it does flex a little bit, but it is very beefy, very dense foam on it. I don't think it's a plastic. I think it's just an extremely dense foam on the front. And you can see the difference between these two, where this had a lot more segments. So this really kind of folded down a bit more, and you can see how on my shoulders it kind of folds over, but this is totally straight now. So when you're wearing this up, this part is probably gonna fit a bit straighter, maybe widen your shoulders a bit. We'll take a look when we put the jersey on to see if that really makes a big difference. But then we get to the top, and you can see that segment piece up here is the same between them. So you still have that exact segmented part through it. So again, this is very much like a V2 of this chest. We saw kind of where the iterations went from it. And this is sharing parts while also kind of having different changes to it and perhaps upgrades. I haven't had issues with single piece floaters before. I had it in my brown, but some people wanted those kind of separated ones. And I'm surprised that this is kind of allowed at the NHL, to be honest. I guess it is. The NHL going to their whole new sizing limitations for chests. You would kind of think you'd want to force that flexibility so it more rounds instead of being, we've seen how big Brian's and Bauer chests have looked before on goalies. So the fact that they are doing a single piece here kind of makes sense with how big and almost cheating those floaters have been. The neck piece right here also looks like it has been upgraded, but I really think it's just the foam on mine gets pushed down. So when I pull that foam up, and this is a really nice like soft foam to it, it almost feels like a D3O foam. It's not quite as good as a D3O foam, to be honest, but it feels really nice. And same thing up here. It is a pretty dense foam, but soft. So it's not hard and dense like these. It's obviously a lot softer for that, but it still feels like it has some almost D3O properties to it where you can kind of squish it and it comes back. Now mine kind of gets stuck underneath and kind of slides around. You can see kind of slides in there, where this one is still tight because it's not really used. Then I can kind of pull mine back up and it kind of fits up better there. Now this chest does sit a bit lower. I always recommend wearing like a Kova neck guard underneath, but this does have a nice little added protective piece, especially your pucks are going to kind of ramp up here. It's nice to have that little bit of neck guard there for extra protection on that. Going on to the back plate and the shoulders up here, you'll see no adjustability up here at all for both of these. That's an NHL thing. You can't have adjustable shoulder floaters. So even companies that do have adjustable ones, those floaters end up having to be sewn into the specific spot, so you can't adjust them and move them around. These are just sewn in as is, the way they come. So this back plate is where you see a big upgrade, and this is CCM kind of bringing that whole idea of AER-TEC to their goalie line, which I absolutely love AER-TEC on player gear. So I'm very happy to see here. This thing is all nylon, very traditional type of materials in here for goalie gear, and it does have like some padding through it. It's just kind of a back plate. With this, you have some mesh back here, which isn't really going to do much, but here you have mesh, and it has enough mesh where I can kind of see air through it. So it's perforated mesh and foams all the way through this, which is honestly fantastic. I'm a huge fan of that. And you can see the other side, you have air mesh all through it as well. So you're going to get better breathability. So I absolutely love this. Again, chest protectors and running hot are kind of my thing that I'm trying to avoid. Having this through here is amazing, and I really, really like it. Having more breathability and having spots where air can just come straight through and come out is absolutely amazing. Now, just a funny little call out thing. Previously, I talked about that material that was on the chest piece and on the knee guards. This is kind of similar to what it was, and it's back here. Now it's speed skin. CCM needs to use their speed skin that they had somewhere. They're taking it off all their pro pads. It's not even an option on the pro customizer anymore. So you got to use that material somewhere. So why not use it for little attachment pieces like this, which is what they did. You do also have this tie down strap at the back. It is on the new one as well, but the new one is kind of a lot nicer. It does have a stretch to it, and it is just overall a much nicer tie down strap than what this one was. This one's kind of awful, to be honest. It almost feels like they pulled this off off of a jersey. Really nice touch on here, just so you can either integrate your pants better or to help keep your pants up without using suspenders. Now again, going on to this inner body piece, you can see this massive difference on the inside here, and this is that AER-TEC air mesh that I've been talking about. It's also on the sides here. So again, instead of this kind of not very nice nylon material that is just there, you have a much lighter, and actually it's softer as well, air mesh going through there for better breathability, and you have it on the chest as well. So you can see you have this padded area in here, and it does allow more breathability for air to come in and out of it. This one, as you can see, was just a totally enclosed piece right here. I'm not sure how this works in terms of if this side isn't air mesh, which it isn't. I'm not totally sure how the air is going to go through this side versus this side, or if this being padded a bit just kind of creates a barrier to allow air to kind of flow up, because this thing gets absolutely soaked and you can just feel the sweat on here and just sticks here, and your body kind of sticks to it and your base layers stick to it because it's so wet. So maybe with this, the inside will get more wet and this will allow a little bit of like an air barrier, maybe for better breathability. Again, I can't test this out because this isn't mine. CCM advertises a lot of these foams with holes through it for breathability, but obviously if you do that on the front, you're probably sacrificing some protection and durability. I can see why that doesn't go all the way through the front there. Now, this isn't exactly the AER-TEC design that they've done, I think, on the eFlex 6. I covered it at one point, I can't remember what it was. AER-TEC is amazing. I talk about it on their player gear all the time. It really works. They do like suspension things with pieces, so it allows air to come through and kind of pass through. This isn't exactly that. I would love to see them put that in here. NHL goalies aren't as picky as stuff like that as I am. When I'm talking about this, I'm trying to look at how you can innovate more and more and make like the best product possible and the most performing chest protector. A lot of people just want things that work, which is why this is very popular. It's pretty simple design, to be totally honest. It works really well. It doesn't have any kind of frills, and I'm gonna say gimmicks, but they're not gimmicks if they work. I would love to see a suspension system kind of like this. This is their AER-TEC suspension system on a pair of FT6 Pro shoulder pads. I would love to see something like this on the goalie gear. I thought they did it on the eFlex 6. Again, this is the NHL one, so I get it, but it would be really amazing to have this kind of attached here to float this out. Maybe this is doing that suspension system piece. Again, can't wear it and can't test this out because obviously it's not mine. Maybe it will be on the next version of these, but I think that would be kind of an interesting idea. But I'm happy to see them doing something about it because it does still run kind of hot, and this is a very nice change from what it was before. So after wearing these two chests, doing all the little footage, you can safely say this one, it's still warm, but this AER-TEC stuff, it really does make a difference. I wore this for a lot more of the filming than this one did. And this one, I just felt this piece really kind of getting wet. And right now it's kind of, it doesn't really show off, but it is a bit wet to the touch. And that's just me from sitting in it, sweating a little bit from being under the hot lights, as well as being in a basement. But this one, you can't feel anything at all, or on the back as well. The back is totally fine, and I was wearing this for a lot longer. So the fact that this has no issues with it and is totally dry, and I wasn't overheating in it, saying a lot with how much this venting and this new materials really work. Now, since we are back here and we can kind of see this, the strapping on this is extremely simple. You have these loops right here, and the adjustment pieces goes through these two loops on the side, comes through the back, as you can see right here. And you could not run it through these, but I find when you don't, it kind of doesn't pull everything down nicely. Runs through here, runs through there, strap it up. Very simple, nothing to really break besides elastic. And this one is pretty heavy duty. Mine is a lot less heavy duty than this. All of mine basically stretches, you can see, and it's just like baconed out a lot. I'm sure this will bacon after use. That thing has hundreds and hundreds of games on it, and it had hundreds of like AHL games before me too. Totally fine strapping system. It's super simple, no buckles to break, no magnets to kind of fiddle with. Easy to adjust yourself, easy to mod yourself if you want. So before we look at the arms, we are going to look at the attachment piece, and we are going to look at this little cap as well. So on this attachment piece, on both of them, it just has a little nylon loop right here. Same thing over here, just a little nylon loop that it runs through. I have had these nylon loops rip off on both of mine. I've had to repair it. It's also a reason why I ended up buying a new chest, because I figured I'm gonna have to keep repairing this over and over again. I might as well just buy one. After my second repair, I had to repair, I think, each of them. I repaired them. It hasn't gotten worse yet. I haven't had to re-repair my repair. I found those to be issues. Hopefully these are reinforced a bit. Now again, that went through AHL seasons and then to me, so that's a ton of use. So this will probably be fine, to be totally honest. And it's not gonna be a Bauer thing where these fall out after like 5 minutes. That is in there, how that connects. And then you have these plates right here for kind of the upper arm protection. And I kind of showed off that with my Bauer added pieces. What this is, it has a bottom piece right here, and this is a very dense foam, kind of peeking out for a little bit extra. Then you have an extremely dense foam on top. Almost feels like a plastic. It isn't, but it feels like it. And then you have this piece on the inside as well. Just connects over into the shoulder floater, well, under the floater, I should say. and kind of covers under the floater as well to give that kind of connection piece protection part. This is okay. I'll show some more issues when I put it on. Vaughn does this in the best way of any company. I don't know how they get around it with the actual NHL sizing thing to work, but this little cap on Vaughn's is fantastic. And you can see it kind of peek out a little bit, and it works pretty well, especially with the arms at their like normal attachment points. Any longer you got kind of iffy, but this one is working totally fine for that. And we are going to look really quickly right now under the floater too. You can see these blocks continue, and they don't like cheapen the blocks in here and do like thinner padded pieces. This is all just as beefy down here as it is on the body. So you get the shoulder pieces, you get these pieces, right? This one obviously isn't quite as beefy as what is down here because it is segmented and it's just slightly smaller. And then you get the padded pieces underneath. So I have seen companies in the past where the insides here are actually soft and not as beefy as what is down here on the body. I'm trying to point at it right here. So I'm glad they didn't do that. Obviously this is beef and this matters for pros. That's a solid design right there. Now, looking at these arms side by side, you can see they're very similar to each other, if not basically identical, minus my added piece on there. Floater caps are a dense foam with a little bit of a gap between them, but really whenever that sits on top, it kind of always creates a little barrier. So I don't know if you can see kind of what's behind here. Well, you have this piece right here, and you have obviously this piece right here. So when it sits on here, it's almost impossible for this piece to actually hit your arm behind it. Because when you put your arm in there, like right there, I can touch my fingers, but that can never really get in there just because of how these blocks sit. It's a fantastic design, and I've never once felt anything through here, which I can't say the same for a lot of chests. So this has never been an issue because of these kind of plates on both sides, kind of keeping it away from the actual arm itself. Exact same thing here. Now I do want to say this arm does feel a lot lighter than what this arm is, and it's not just because of the Bauer piece on there. It is some of the materials on here. So this is a very dense foam. You can see it kind of busted from shots and bent on there, but it is really solid. And same with this. This doesn't flex at all. Now we look at the new one and it flexes. So they decided to get softer on this. So you can see the foam density on that is completely different than what is on here, which is probably one of the parts that is contributing to a lighter weight overall. Because now, again, I can't test this to see how this works. So I'm curious to see how these hold up, because these are a lot of a less dense foam on there compared to what this is. So that foam is much, much less dense than what we got on here. These things almost feel like they're plastic. They're so dense and so hard. Now, going on to the forearm for the strap, you have this strap right here, which had a bit of air mesh underneath here. I'm not sure the reason behind why they did that. I honestly absolutely hate this strap. I always find it gets caught up on things, to be honest. So this piece was always kind of annoying. You can see it's harder for them to do because they have this kind of cap and then they have this little extended piece to wrap your arm around. It was just kind of annoying. It's still the same on here, but they did kind of slim out the little tips of it. And normally I hate these. I normally really hate when companies make a really thin Velcro piece on the tip because it rips up your fingers. I am saying this on here. I have noticed this piece getting caught on things all the time. You can see how the tip already comes off really easily. I've noticed on jerseys. I've noticed it all the time. Just this piece kind of gets attached to things. This is going to help stop that from happening because it is thinned out. So I love that that was put on there. Small thing, but it really works. Another tiny little change here. This is all of elastic material. So you can see how this stretch and now is kind of baconed out. I don't really get why this would be an elastic because you just kind of pull it on here and you would just put it on. Like there's never a chance really this is super wide and you really need this to stretch, maybe for a bit more comfort, but that is no longer elastic on the newer one. It is just a nylon all the way through. So you just have a straight up nylon right here. It doesn't stretch at all. So when you put it on and you do it up like this, it's not going to stretch and move. Maybe this is slightly less comfortable than what was on this one, but it's honestly, I kind of like it because I noticed this a lot getting pulled over here and it does bacon out a little bit, but the new one also attaches through this loop right here as well. So you do have a little bit more comfort back here because this piece will now just touch the bottom of your arm and it won't have that strap kind of pulled tight against it. And you can just wrap it around like that. So I do like this small little change here. Inside of here is a nice softer material. You can feel it. It's like a spandex almost material. Really nice. It feels like the inside of gloves. It's much better than what this was, which was air mesh. This isn't the most comfortable material to be on skin. Like this just isn't great right here. It's a little bit more rough. This is a lot nicer. So I really like how this is like a spandex material on here. Then they have the air mesh on the outside. The air mesh also is now much thicker. So you can see the massive holes on there compared to what is back on here. This is a much thinner material. This looks like it comes straight off of gloves, where this one looks like it is a specific purpose for this chest. So interesting that that is different as well. I've had people ask me over and over again of what socks I always recommend, and I've been using Cutshield for a while now. I have multiple stuff from them. So Cutshield is a company out of Canada that makes cut resistant socks, and these are their Pro Air 6, which means it's an anti-level 6 for cut resistance on here. Full review of it up there so you can check it out. But I now have a coupon code with Cutshield, so if you want to support the channel, you can check out the link in the description to Cutshield, buy some socks, which I think are honestly one of the better socks on the market. I absolutely love them. They're pretty thin and they are cut resistant and they're not too hot either. Use my coupon code, you get 25% off and it helps support the channel. We also have this cap, and here you can see kind of the exact same idea between the two. It still has a cap in here. It's a very dense foam. You can feel and squish it, but it's an extremely dense foam. You can squeeze it this way, which you can do on mine too, but the actual foam back here is extremely dense. And it's like kind of hard to do it that way. Now, kind of hard just to squeeze it right here. Now, if you take this on a retail one and squeeze this, you're gonna feel a totally different thing. And I mean retail by like eFlex 6 type thing. With this, same thing, extremely dense on here. It feels the same. This one, both of them have a bit of padding on the top and then a very dense foam underneath. Again, can squeeze this one as well. So nothing really feels like it's changed there. And then on the top, same with this upper piece as well. Same idea, very dense foam throughout here. Awesome protection on this piece itself. Absolutely love it. Same thing with this right here. Amazing protection. I'm pretty sure this feels like a plastic piece right here. This is such a thick piece back here. It's ridiculous. And it is still here as well. You can see that massive piece right there. Here's that piece where I talked about, I have my sewn in knee guard cap, and it's the same idea design through here, which is these pieces all in here. So all back here is pretty much the same material, just your nylons, and this kind of folds over the top of your arm. You can see both the exact same idea behind all of these. You actually do have a little bit more material up here versus what is on here, but the rest of it is pretty much the same. And this is where I wish kind of CCM did something different, and they didn't. I would have loved to have just added padded pieces behind this. This is obviously not supposed to get hit. I get hit here all the time though. I'm sure other people do as well. I wish there was just more foam behind this, like a soft foam behind this, just for added protection on here, just for this inside piece. And even if they could kind of do like that comfort edge material in here a little bit more, just to have some more padding on here, so and I keep it behind. So if you do get hit here, because this foam right here, you can see is not very dense. It's a very soft foam and it flexes with you. So having something back there really would help with that impact, because this is not enough for impact. It was the same on this one too though. You can see how flexible that is. It's not enough for impact. It's not supposed to be hit, but I get hit there all the time. So I wish there was something in here that was. The elbow pad design on this thing is fantastic, and honestly one of my favorites, because they basically take some of their elbow pad ideas from player gear and put it into here. I always love when companies do this, because really what better way to get your arm to be kind of stable in here, as well as having excellent elbow cap protection, by having an elbow pad in here that you can land on. So when you look at this, you can see a change as well. You have a flap on this one versus this one, which never had that flap. At least the way that this connection part worked, it went through this very heavy duty loop right here, where this one, it's not at the current time. Now you could just put it over top, but you can see how much thinner that loop is. Just a nylon loop versus this massive, almost Gen Pro thing on here. So that could be another weight savings idea. You don't need this massive piece. So that one is totally fine on there. That's gonna be easier to fix. Probably would break quicker, but it would be easier to fix overall. And then when we look on the inside, you can see it has an adjustable kind of shoulder sleeve as well for up here. So you can tighten that if you want, and it's a two-way adjustment piece. So on this side as well as this side, I haven't touched this once from having it. I mean, if you really want to crank this down and tighten it, I guess you could. You could probably take that off too if you want to, but it does do a really good job holding your upper arm kind of in this place, and then the rest of the elbow in a place as well. And when we look at the piece in here though, same thing, exact same connection ideas behind here. You have your Velcros, you have your adjustable piece for your bicep, and you have this extra little flap. Nice to have just a little bit extra padding, because I guess that will cover this little spot as well if you somehow manage to get hit there. So going on to this pad on here for your elbow protection, they look very similar to each other and they feel honestly pretty similar to each other. The older one feels like it might be a bit more thick or dense, because this one squeezes a little bit more, but it's barely anything, and honestly it causes like no issue whatsoever. There is a donut in here that I can't really show you without taking the whole arm off, and honestly it's not really worth it. And it is the same thing as in here. So there's a nice little donut, so your elbow doesn't go all the way end. It kind of sits right there, so when you fall, your elbow is not going to hit the back and it's going to have a bit of a gap. Basically the same idea as what this is, where you have a little donut and this kind of floats on top. Now going down here, this is all a really soft material and just foams kind of wrapping the rest of your forearm all the way through. And you do have that thicker looping piece right here, to hold this bottom piece, as well as to hold the bottom strap for the wrist guard as well. Now this is one of the changes on this one. I don't know if this is where they're saving some weight. No longer have this strap right here. You just have the one, which I think is totally fine. I think this thing is overstrapped. But when I take this out, you can also see it has that side straps right here, which was also on this one. But here is a big difference. This was kind of one piece here and didn't have pieces down the side, where this has just one big piece all the way coming down your arm, which honestly I think is a nice upgrade on this. That feels very nice. Might as well simplify that. You don't need multiple pieces on there. It's just one piece all the way through, where this one had that one piece and then this bottom piece right here as well. Simplifying this backhand piece right here, losing some straps, which were kind of overcomplicated as is a very nice change. And it pulls this up kind of away right in the middle, whereas before you can see how that's there. Put it right in the middle makes sense. There is no padding on the insides of these really. You can hopefully kind of see it, just straight out nylon right here with no padding at all, going straight to the outside. And that is the same with this. There's no padding behind here. The padding is all built into this piece right here, which is totally fine because this thing is a total tank. Same with everything on the bicep and everything else. There's no extra padding under here. This is doing all the padding itself, and kind of the nylons in here are just really to kind of separate the two layers, but there's nothing extra in there and there's no extra padding in there. One thing that CCM totally didn't do, and I'm honestly very disappointed that they didn't do, because this is gonna happen to most chest protectors, is this nylon you can see just rubs out, and you can see kind of where that edge piece is, right? You can see how it kind of glows right there. That's gonna happen on this one as well. This material feels pretty much the same. Maybe it's slightly different. Maybe CCM will say that this material is more durable than what this one is, but they could have just put a piece of Gen Pro right here. I mean, you have a ton of speed skin around. Here's more of it on here that you need to get rid of. So maybe even just apply speed skin over here just to this kind of wear point. CCM has also put kind of wear points on corners of pads, which again would have been really nice just to kind of put right here, and then kind of on the tips right here as well, just to kind of worry about that wear guards and wear spots, which are gonna happen on all of them. The other arm I have on this is even worse. And you can see right through the foams, and I can confirm now that that is a plastic. So that is a plastic going all the way through the foams as a plate, because you can see the plastic through there, through that foam. I wish there was a wear guard there. It's kind of disappointing that CCM didn't put the wear guard on there, and it's kind of a bit of an oversight in my opinion. Maybe on version 3, when they hopefully add that suspension system, maybe they'll put some wear guards on here, because I have a feeling these are going to be wear spots and you're going to see it. That's also a very good giveaway on these chests. If you want to see how much one of these is used, look for these, and that gives you a good indication. So for arm interference, this is a fit 4. The arms feel okay, if not a little bit long, but I grabbed a couple gloves that are not good in terms of like having open cuffs. This one is a pretty closed cuff, so you can see interference is pretty good with it though. It does kind of taper, but it doesn't really matter because it's just a strap. So you can see the plate part where it kind of comes over a little bit, but hands up is totally fine. I can feel a little bit of like counter pressure kind of pushing it down a little bit, but it's not that bad and it's totally fine. And really when you're using this, it's going to be kind of okay. I would probably prefer a fit 3 arms though, just because this one's slightly long, I would say. And I have these adjusted on the shortest spot they can go, and it's still there. So a fit 3 would probably be better for me. And this blocker, this is a Hyperlite 2-piece, is pretty bad for cuff integration, as you can see. I can still play with it fine. Like, it's not totally getting in the way, but it's there. You can see that massive overlap, and it's in the way a little bit. Again, this is a bad kind of cuff for blockers. A lot more and more open now, so this wouldn't be an issue really at all. This is one of the tighter ones I had, so I wanted to take a look at it. But you can see integration is overall pretty good, and these kind of shield floater pieces on top of the chest protector doesn't really get in the way all that much, even though it's extremely protective. For the arms themselves, I'll just show this off right here for mobility. You can see they're pretty good. They do get stuck on that top piece, that like very, very top floater part. That always kind of happened when I put the Bauer curve knee pads on mine. It made it worse, but also that makes it worse going up like this, so it gets in the way. Where this one is totally fine. You can see I can touch my head totally fine, and it moves totally fine. And movements, everything is very good. And this is without a jersey on. Put a jersey on, it's going to be even better, because some of these little things that get caught kind of get pushed down a little bit so they don't kind of float on each other. As someone that always swears by Pro Stock and loves when company release like the NHL stuff like this one to the retail market, one thing I can't talk about, but I'm also not thrilled it's a thing, is the sizing on this. Now, I get it. This is physically the chest the NHL players are getting, which is awesome. It's something I've been asking for a lot. But NHL players have to have specific sizing guides because of Kay Whitmore's rules for NHL legal equipment, yada yada. This is a fit 4, which is their biggest size. And I can't tell you which size you should fit in based on their sizing charts and based on how it is. I can tell you this, I'm 6'3" and this thing is too big for me. I adjusted the arms to their smallest point. It's too big, but this is one of the things where I unfortunately can't recommend sizes on people, which I had a lot of people reach out to me and say, hey, can you recommend a size on this? And I was like, I have no idea. I wear a fit 3, I'm 6'3", but it's all about arm span kind of, and it's kind of tough, to be honest. I wish they still had their just like small, medium, large, XL for this piece. I get it. This is the NHL piece. Would it be that big of a pain to make these chests with just slightly different arm sizes for small, medium, XL and have it the same fit as your other one? I guess if it is, then that's one thing, because it's probably coming from the exact same line and they probably just build a ton of them for NHL and now as well as retail, but it's just slightly annoying in that sense. The other thing that's kind of annoying to me is on the NHL ones, you would have arms on here. I know there's a regular and I think there's a LG for large. And the reason I'm kind of mentioning that is because I feel like it's one of the adjustable pieces that make it hard for retail. I'm sure most people can fit in a fit 2 or fit 3 on this. I just think maybe fitting things could have been a little bit easier. Now they have a sizing chart online. I guess go by that. Unfortunately, when I filmed this video at the hockey store, it had copyright music in the background. So I'm just gonna have to dub over this. This was a fit 3 that I managed to try on, and you can see the arm coverage gap on the arms for this fit 3. Now they are adjusted at the same spot as the fit 4 were, so it's not too long down, and you can just see how much more of a gap there is in protection on there. Like these weren't cranked to be really long to pull down, like I kind of showed off how that opens up on the fit 4. These arms are just shorter. So I'm guessing the top bicep piece here doesn't extend all that far on different sizes, and they shorten this one for interference or something reasons. But for me on a fit 3 where the body feels really good, the arm itself ends up being short on that bicep and that gap opens up. So if you are fitting yourself for this chest and you're wearing this chest and you're looking at trying to figure out if it actually fits for you, make sure you check that arm piece to see how much is going to be exposed on there. Because even though this chest basically fits me the way I want it to, and the arms even feel really good in terms of movement and how deep they are in my gloves, clearly that bicep piece is still exposed. So I wouldn't really recommend this size to someone myself, because I would be worried about that spot, especially from my experiences on it. So make sure you check that specific part when you are sizing this and trying it on. So this is obviously the untucked version of it. I'm wearing these Vaughn pants because if a chest isn't very like slimming, it's kind of harder for them to tuck a chest in. These are SLR pants, so even though they're the wider pants, it's not the best to tuck. My warrior chest pops out of these a lot. I have a pain. So this integration with these pants and this chest is a good example of something that you want where it will be untucked and you can see just kind of how it sits and everything. So I mentioned untucked. For my preference, it's tucked. And this flap is that piece that I said would kind of get in the way of my jock. And this is my warrior jock. And when I put it in here, it is like, I can feel it pushing down on my jock a lot and it's not very comfortable. But when it is tucked, this does kind of work pretty good overall. But again, this, I would cut this out in a heartbeat just because it totally gets in the way of my jock and it just is a huge pain. And I'm trying to make it so it just sits comfortably, but it doesn't really work all that well. So this flap though, because this is segmented from the side, like right here, you can see it sits on the top. So I can still tuck the side, which is nice, because if you want this flap out front, it kind of works. It's harder to tie into it though. You could probably go up the sides if you wanted to. Again, I would cut that out, but it is nice how this is segmented. So when you tuck on the sides, the front can still be out in case it gets in the way like this does. But this shows the coverage of the side when it's tucked in. So I mentioned the neck piece, and this is obviously with my Kova on. And my other chest, I definitely noticed. It felt like I was a bit naked under there, but it's more of a comfort thing and people are gonna be fine with it. So you can see how it sits like this, but then when you drop into your chest, you can see just, I like the Kova because it does give that extra spot, and this doesn't really come up as much to really protect as much of your neck as you could. But that's like all chest, it kind of float down a little bit. I mentioned when I looked at the arms, you have this gap spot, and it's kind of hard to feel. I can feel it with my fingers right in here. So basically right here and up under this little flap is all that gap. Now, when I play, I notice I get hit here a bunch, and I think maybe the Fit 4 might just solve that for me, because like when you go in here, it's really hard to actually get that in there. Now, if I'm doing a post lean like this, it's like that flap right here I can feel it, and that's where I keep getting dinged, basically right here. So I'm not sure, and actually, yeah, that's the puck right there. So this spot right here is where I keep getting dinged with pucks like this, and it's not the nicest thing, and you can see it misses that outer flap, and it just kind of goes right into your arm right there. So basically that goes like right in there, and it hits that a lot. So you can see this is kind of what it looks like in RVH. You can see where the protective pieces all kind of sit on here for everything. And I use this chest, well, my version, a lot. It is very good for this. So I did a bunch of content in the past with chest protectors on, with this jersey on, with this helmet on, and with the net behind me. This angle is probably not perfect. This was years ago, but ideally this will give you an idea of how big the floaters are on here and how much room this takes up when you're just in a blocking position like this compared to the net itself. So the floaters aren't massive, as you can see. They're not these massive warrior things. And going over the top is super easy with this, even with the dangler. If you're looking down, yeah, it gets caught a little bit, but over the top, you can easily go over the side and it doesn't get in the way at all. It's so much easier than my warrior one to do it. When you're in your stance as well, going side to side, super easy, it doesn't get in the way. And then going over, super easy as well, it doesn't get in the way. The jersey, obviously pulling the floaters down a little bit. I don't have the suspenders on these, so that would help a little bit more too, but no issues whatsoever. It's pretty compact, it's NHL legal, that makes sense. Just for comparison's sake, this is obviously that Fit 4. Like I mentioned, you can see where it comes down here. Obviously this part folded up to be a real comparison. For the arms, this soft piece is basically coming down to my outer wrist piece right there, and these are on the shortest setting they can be on the arms. So this can go longer than this as well. I really kind of shrunk these arms down a bit there to make that like this. So I'll put mine on and you can kind of compare the two. So this is obviously my chest, and you can see how the floaters on this too bend compared to the other one. So I'll do a side by side to kind of show you that. You can also see how open without that cova this looks, and the other one will kind of be like that as well. When you bend down, it doesn't really come up all that much, and this is tucked in, and this works better tucked in for this. Now for the arm length, I mentioned this piece was basically down to my bone, kind of similar on this, but this one is adjusted more so it's not the shortest spot possible. And this one works pretty good for me. I mentioned these arms are probably the one I would want, to be totally honest. That chest feels like it's for someone, I'm 6'3", like 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", would probably be perfect for it. I could probably get away with it, but this one, which is a Fit 3, it just works a little bit better for me. Now I mentioned the gaps in the arms, and this is where you can ideally see a little bit of that Bauer knee pad shell, and that's what I added to it. So anywhere that Bauer knee pad shell is basically that missed protection spot because this top level, which was obviously better on that Fit 4. So it's a weird thing where maybe I need a Fit 4 top piece, but the rest of it I need a Fit 3, but you can definitely see like when you're out here and everything where that part gets hit, and it does get hit quite a bit because I've noticed it over and over and over again. So that's about it for this snapshot review of the CCM AB Pro, whatever number it is for this year, comparing it to my amazing Pro return that I've used for years and is completely destroyed, but it's still also kind of going strong. Again and again, I have asked companies to make NHL gear at retail, especially for players who are playing like Junior B, Junior A, guys who aren't in those like leagues like OHL, things like that, but are still playing high level hockey on the ice all the time. Stuff like this is going to be fantastic for them. Spending the extra money on it, it's gonna last them forever, and they're not gonna have to worry about shot. And this thing will go on forever and ever. It's a total tank. Maybe they don't want that because then people won't have to buy new ones, but this thing is fantastic. This chest is expensive for chests. All chests are kind of going up there now. If you buy beef Bauer and stuff, it's going to be up there. This is an amazing design. The one I had before was phenomenal for protection. I can see this one being just as good, maybe something a little different on these floaters, but CCM should have data on that I don't have, and don't have the experience testing these, so hopefully it's totally fine. This chest is a total tank. It is awesome. I have been asking for this for years. I have been very critical of CCM goalie in the past for like E-Flex 6 stuff, and I'll continue to be honest about equipment. This thing is right now the most protective chest protector on the market. Brown goalie doesn't exist anymore, so the Russian spec isn't a thing anymore. This thing is a total tank. While I haven't worn every chest on ice, get a good idea of how good a chest is going to be. You can feel around things, and I've used enough stuff, tested enough stuff that I kind of have an idea of how stuff will work. This thing is an absolute tank, and it is awesome. Now, when people say what's your recommended for the most protective, it's going to be this. Now, with that said, it is heavier. It's heavier than my Warrior. Mine runs hotter than my Warrior does. I don't know if this one's gonna run hotter because unfortunately I can't use it, but it's heavier and it's not as wide because it fits in NHL regs where the Warrior does. This is the chest that goalies are wearing in the NHL, and this is probably one of the more used chests that goalies are wearing in the NHL. It's extremely impressive. Huge credit to CCM for coming out with these. I'm hoping you come out with the pants next, because you might as well come out with the pants next. You did this. Just come out with HPG 12As, and you already make that pant as is for NCAA. You make it for OHL, WHL, QJ, MHL. Make that pant available to everyone, and I'll be just recommending your pant to everyone, just like I'm going to be recommending this chest to basically everyone. So I really hope your stock levels can keep up with the hopeful demand for this, because this thing is awesome. It's expensive, but it's going to last forever. Huge shout out to Just Hockey for letting me borrow it. Check them out in the description and go to them and make a purchase and grab their stuff. To thank them for letting me check out this video, because I was going to buy one of these, but then I was questioning the top arm piece. I didn't want to have the same problem I had with mine where I had to add this thing. I was like, it's not worth it. And I just couldn't justify buying it as a test. I've never really been in CCM Goalie's good book, so there's no way this was ever going to be sent to me to test and look at. So huge thanks to Just Hockey for that. It is unbelievably appreciated. And I hope you guys show your support through them. So thank you very much for watching this video. This is huge praise for me. And also, if this video was helpful, please let CCM, the hockey and the goalie ones on Instagram and stuff like that, let them know that my content is helpful. So even though I'm critical all the time, when you make good gear, I'll talk about it as good gear. People will be interested in your gear, and I will recommend good products like this one. Thank you very much for watching this video. Hopefully it was helpful. Remember to subscribe to me on YouTube, follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Links are in the description. If you want to support the channel and you're buying hockey equipment anyways, and you're in Canada and the US, check out the links in the description to Just Hockey. Clicking that link and making a purchase shows them that these videos are helpful, as well as gives me a kickback, help support channel so I can keep making more content and doing more reviews on ice gear, because I have to usually buy all that. If you want to support the channel without buying anything hockey related, check out the links in the description to Patreon and buy me a coffee. Everything through any of those links always comes back into the channel so I can keep making more videos and doing more reviews. Thank you very much for watching, and take it easy.
You're watching HockeyReviews.ca.